right, welcome to Night Talk. We are here with one of the best writers, one of the best people in the world. He is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated from Alpha Chapter, Howard University. My brother Darryl Orlando Ledbetter. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, brother. Freeman, thanks for having me on the show today. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure and an honor. Want to congratulate you on being honored at the most recent conclave in Charlotte, North Carolina. Much deserving and very much so well deserved.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor and a pleasure to pick up my 40-year service pin. Been a long time, but glad to pick that up and shake the Grand Boss's hand. And, going to find a special place for that certificate to put around here.
Yes, indeed. Once again, congratulations to you. Much deserved. I want to start asking you, Brother Orlando Ledbetter covers the Atlanta Falcons for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's also an adjunct professor at Clark Atlanta University, where he teaches journalism. Am I correct?
I'm at the University of Georgia now.
Okay.
I left Clark Atlanta in 15 and been at University of Georgia since 2015 in their sports journalism program.
Excellent. Got that straight. I'm glad we straightened that out. Now, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. What do you think about the Atlanta Falcons' chance this year? They showed some signs, showed some promise last year. What do you think about this year?
Yeah, no question about it. We are projecting a regression here in Atlanta for the simple fact that they traded Matt Ryan and or bringing in a new quarterback, and the fact that they are working with a deficit of $63.4 million in dead salary cap money. So that's a lot of players that they don't have on their roster, and they're going to be taking a slingshot to the gunfight on most Sundays this year. So it's going to be a pretty long year here in Atlanta for the Falcons.
How did they get to that point? Dead salary cap, some bad contracts, or was Matt Ryan's contract associated with that also?
Yes, bad contracts, bad drafting, because, they went to the Super Bowl, then they started paying everybody because they expected to be going back to the Super Bowls. But then the players surrounding the stars, the players that they drafted didn't work out. So then you had a fall from, elite status in the league after the 2017 season. And then Coach Quinn got fired, and then you're sitting here with these big contracts. You could either live with those guys or you move on from them. And they tried to live with Matt Ryan for a year and Dante Fowler, but those are two of the big contracts that are eating up. Julio Jones didn't want to be here because they didn't consult him on the, change. And so those are the three big contracts that have led to this record deficit of dead salary cap space.
What is your thoughts on head coach Arthur Smith? How do you think he did his first year, and how do you think he's going to do this year?
Yeah, very organized, very crisp. They overachieved last year, getting 7 wins. They won close games, 7-2 in one-score games. But when they stepped up in competition, they pretty much got their heads beat in, had a negative 146-point scoring deficit. And, that was in large part because the good teams, they couldn't hang with them. And we saw that in Buffalo when they pushed them to the second half. But, when the Bills decided to run the ball down their throat, there wasn't anything they could do. We saw the Saints do it in the final game for Kamara going 30 times for 146 yards. So, they had deficiencies. They tried to play the clock to slow it down and everything, and somehow managed to win 7 games doing that. So he's off to a good start coaching-wise. Now they have to get the talent level up. They said he was an offensive genius or guru. And some people didn't see it that way. It was like, he's got Derrick Henry. What genius is that, handing the ball off to Derrick Henry? But, they did salvage Ryan Tannehill's career, mostly throwing off of Derrick Henry. And they're going to probably try to do the same thing here with Marcus Mariota, but you don't really have Derrick Henry to throw off of. So we'll see how it works out here. Could be a really bad rebuilding year, or maybe they could save Marcus Mariota and kind of make some lemonade out of some lemons here in Atlanta.
How about your defensive coordinator? Is Dean Pease? Am I correct?
Yes, Dean is former college coach, then broke into the NFL with the Patriots, coached under Belichick there, and coached with Coach Saban in the college ranks. And then also was the DC in Baltimore for those good defenses there, that 2012 team that won the Super Bowl. And then did some time in Tennessee. He had his worst ranked defense of his career last year here in Atlanta with 20. They were ranked 26. And he said he wants to change the culture. He wants people to fear the Falcons defense, which he noted. He did the research. He said, hey, the Falcons only had a top 10 defense once in the last 20 years, and that was 2017 under Dan Quinn, and for some reason they fired the defensive coordinator that year. So it's been that uphill battle here, putting the defense together, and Coach Pease wants to change it.
How about your offensive coordinator, Dave Ragone?
Yeah, Dave Ragone, former quarterback from Louisville, St. Ignatius kid out of Cleveland. He's more the quarterback coach than coordinator because he doesn't call the plays. Arthur Smith calls the plays, but he kind of tries to set him up and makes the suggestions, takes things off his plate that he doesn't need. So David is more of a table setter for the offense for Arthur Smith, so he can go around and check on other things that the head coach has to do. But they are linked at the hip. They get the script, and then Dave coaches the script and makes sure the players are ready to fulfill the changes and so forth with regards to the play caller. Now, we did see last year where Matt Ryan would get frustrated at times with Arthur. And, it's like, hey, give me the play. He's got it on his helmet. And, so that's gone now. Mariota and Arthur have worked together before. And so, they might be some familiarity there that will be helpful to the play callers and Dave Ragone and Arthur Smith and the new quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota, and to a lesser degree, Desmond Ridder, if he gets in the games.
What are your thoughts on the quarterback room? Big change. Matt Ryan has been a perennial starter for this franchise for a long time, got you to a Super Bowl. One of the most disappointing Super Bowl losses in Super Bowl history. There's no question about that. I think the city of Atlanta, every time I come there, if you mention or if I wear the T-shirt from that Super Bowl, people just like, why you got to do that? I understand, being from Buffalo, but tell me about that quarterback room. Do you think Marcus Mariota's second opportunity, really his third opportunity, second opportunity at coming in as a starter, but do you think he'll make a difference? I'm not real high on Marcus, but what we're seeing, Pat, is the teams that play, they rush these quarterbacks out there, and and they fail, and they're getting second chances now. You see Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh get a shot. Sam Darnold got 2 shots. Jets in Carolina. Baker Mayfield's going to get a shot. Josh Allen's the only one to make it. Josh Rosen's bounced around the league from that class. So what we're seeing is that the NFL is finding out that, hey, we can't just throw these guys out there.
You got to do kind of like what San Francisco did with Trey Lance, what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. You sit them until they can play. We're going to see Malik Willis in Tennessee probably sit for a while. But that's the whole problem with rushing these guys out there like Jameis and Marcus Mariota. Now teams have a chance to sit back and find out, okay, we can run Mariota running his stuff. His stuff is RPO, college, shotgun stuff. NFL coaches have been stubborn about doing that. They've been, they wanted to stay with the classic drop back guy and, do the Eric Coryell and West Coast offense. These kids aren't running that in college. So then when you get to the league and you try to teach them that, some of them do it, some of them can't, and Marcus was a guy who they fought in Tennessee about whether he could run a pro offense or if he was going to, if he was going to, run the spread and so forth.
Well, do you think he's going to be successful? You think he's going to win some games, or you think he's going to have some struggles because he doesn't have the talent that he really had in Tennessee? I mean, he had Derrick Henry. That's a big plus.
Yeah, you got to look around the league and see which teams have had success running quarterbacks. Certainly, Baltimore's been able to get to the playoffs with Lamar, not do too much. The Eagles last year with Jalen Hurts and so forth. So you're starting to see teams, change their offenses to fit the quarterback. And that's what the Falcons will have to do with Mariota. They got a bunch of big receivers to throw out there. And they got to find a running game to go with it. And it's just going to be a work in progress to see if they can pull that off.
Now, let me talk about this guy. To me, before he suffered that injury in Buffalo, man, he's a difference maker. He really changes the course of that offense. He's a very difficult matchup for any defenses. But, man, you got to put the talent around him, too, or teams are going to collapse on him. And, of course, I'm talking about Kyle Pitts. This guy is just a freak of nature. He's a great player. How do you see him this year?
Yeah, Kyle's, had 1,000 yards last year, but only one touchdown. Basically out there just running around, not knowing what he was doing and so forth. So he wants to we talked to him about it. He wants to be on top of his game mentally, pre-snap and post-snap, and what the defenses are trying to do to him, where the coverage is rolling to him from. And he had a big learning game against Stephon Gilmore, who really got into him and defended him. They put a cornerback, the league's top cornerback, on him. So he learned a lot from that on how to get open, how to separate, and so forth. So he knows he's going to see a whole lot of different coverages, and he has to know what his counter moves are in that situation. So he's been spending a lot of time working on the mental aspects of the game and how to fight through those double teams and maybe sometimes some triple teams.
Do you think teams are going to collapse on him a lot because, you just don't have the talent on that offensive side of the ball that you once had a few years ago?
Yeah, no question about it. That he's going to drag coverage away from the rookie, Drake London, the 8th overall pick. He's going to be a part of this. Cordarrelle Patterson will be a part of this. We're working on a story today on the new offensive weapons. And one of them is, Drake London, Damian Williams, Cordarrelle, and Kyle are the returning weapons, but those are some of the new weapons. Drake London, Damian Williams, and Olamide Zaccheaus to a lesser degree, and Brian Edwards, former wide receiver from the Raiders that they brought over to help Mariota get comfortable. They worked together with the Raiders last year. So those are going to be the weapons that'll be open as coverage drags to Kyle Pitts.
Well, let's talk about that wide receivers room. You're starting off with, well, just give me a little background about Calvin Ridley, what Calvin Ridley did, and why he is not playing.
Yeah, Calvin suspended indefinitely for gambling. He left the team last year to take care of his mental well-being. I think he didn't like the new regime and the routes they had him running, but, I don't want to question his mental health plea. But during that time while he was gone, he gambled on the Falcons to win. But you're not. That's rule number one in the NFL is no gambling on the teams, and so he was suspended indefinitely by the league office, and can apply for reinstatement in January of 2023, and at that time he'll be traded because the Falcons had a trade with the Eagles working. And had to tell the Eagles, hey, we can't really trade you. We can't really trade him. He's up for suspension. So that would have been a bad move on their part to take the first round pick, knowing that their guy was getting ready to get suspended. So they didn't do that. But that's where we're at with Calvin Ridley. Left a big hole in the roster, and they tried to fill that hole by drafting Drake London in the first round of the draft.
Now, who else is in that receiver room that hopefully will make up a difference of Calvin Ridley's absence?
Yeah, it's a bunch of guys, and let's run them down for you. Olamide Zaccheaus has been a reserve here. He's listed as the other number one receiver. Brian Edwards came over from the Raiders, former high draft pick who underperformed out of South Carolina. He's number two behind London. Then you have Jarrett Barnhart, a former lacrosse player at Maryland who won the Heisman in lacrosse and played option quarterback at Ferris State in Michigan, led them to a Division II title. They're converting him to a wide receiver. Expect him to be a practice squad guy eventually, a guy who won't be active for the first couple games. And then on the other side behind Zaccheaus, you have Demir Bird, a former speedster guy who, can get open deep, been with Arizona and a few other teams. And Carterell Hodge, a Prairie View A&M alum, HBCU alum. He's been a steady receiver in the league with the Browns, a bigger receiver. Not a lot of speed, but can get open in zones and sit down, and big tough receiver to, you can RPO stuff off of Patterson and throw it to Hodge. So they got pieces, but nobody that's gonna strike the fear of the fear in your back end of the defense.
Everything starts up front. Brother Ledbetter, what about the offensive line? Do they have the depth to overcome? There's always people getting banged up on the front. Does the offensive line room have the depth to get through this season?
Yeah, that was one of the stories of the Super Bowl team is that that whole line started all 17 games together. And, that never happened. So, this year they are anchoring with Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom. Jake at left tackle, Chris at right guard. They changed out the other three spots. Well, two of them. The center is new, Drew Dahlman. So he's got backup Matt Hennessy that has played. So you got depth there. And they brought in a new right tackle in Elijah Wilkerson and converted him to left guard. Because Jalen Mayfield didn't, he was one of the worst graded linemen in the league last year as a rookie, had 11 penalties, didn't really help you much at all. So he got beat out. He's on injured reserve. So at least you have some depth in that interior, guys that have played. They didn't play very well, but at least they played. And then at tackle, you got a couple former high draft picks, Chummy Edoga from the Jets, a former second-round pick from USC, and then German Ifedi from Texas A&M, some big school guys that was also a former first-round pick with Seattle. Both of those guys have failed to have some traction in the league, but they've played. They've got high, ratings as far as height, weight, and size, and so forth. So you have some quality backups at tackle, and at least some guys that have played backing up some of the starters just in case things happen up front.
Let's flip over to the defensive side. How about that defensive line? I like their speed. They've always seemed to always have good players the last few years that have good speed. But how do you like the depth of this defensive line?
It's coming. It's developing. I don't see the rotation right now. You got a bunch of young guys up there backed up by young guys. You got two guys that played as rookies last year, Ade Ogundeji and Tyquan Graham. You got Grady Jarrett up there and Anthony Rush and Lorenzo Carter. Those are your starters. Then Carter and Ogundeji are backed up by rookies, D'Angelo Malone and Arnold Ibikute from Penn State. And then behind Grady is, Matt Dickerson from the Titans. They also have Marlon Davidson, who's a second-round pick from Auburn. He's on injury reserve right now. And, you just don't have a lot back in that lineup. If you get tired late in the game, they're going to be in trouble up front. But they're going to have to get some 3-and-outs and get off the field because there's just not a lot of depth as they built this roster back out up front on that defensive line.
How about the linebackers? How do you like them?
They swapped out the whole linebacker crew, and we're going to see if they could play. It was Dante Fowler and Steven Means. They're going to go with Ogundeji and Lorenzo Carter. And in the middle, it was Foye Oluokun and Deion Jones. Foye got a big contract to go to Jacksonville. He led the league in tackles last year. Deion had offseason shoulder surgery, lost his job, and is on injured reserve, former Pro Bowler after the 2017 season. So they went out and signed Rashaan Evans, who had lost his job in Tennessee. He's reuniting with Dean Pease, who was the coordinator in Tennessee when he had his best season in 2019. And the other linebacker was the backup here in Atlanta last year, Mykal Walker, former fourth-round pick out of Fresno, who looks apart. He's the signal caller now. He'll be getting the plays out. He had a big interception return when he played for Deion last year in the one game. So they have a lot of expectations for him anchoring the middle of that defense. His name is Mykal Walker, Fresno State, third-year guy, fourth-round pick. So those are the four new linebackers for the Atlanta Falcons.
How about that defensive backfield? Another one that I think was a gem last year was A.J. Terrell. He's back, super young talent. But how is that defensive backfield room?
Yeah, AJ's on the left side. They did sign Casey Hayward, he'll be playing his 11th year, former high pick by the Packers. Didn't work out there. Then he went to San Diego and turned into a Pro Bowler. And now he's been at a few other stops before he got here. But he's from Perry, Georgia, went to Vanderbilt. So he's a big-time SEC guy. They're counting on him having some gas left in the tank on that side of the field. The big one is safety Richie Grant. They drafted him in the second round last year out of Central Florida, and he didn't play safety. They used him at nickelback because the defense, he was learning the whole defense and the whole complexity of a pro defense. So they just used him at nickel and on special teams. He'll take over at strong safety, and Jalen Hawkins will take over at free. He split time with Eric Harris last year, and he'll take over there. And the nickelback situation is interesting. They found a kid from the Canadian Football League, DeAndre Alford, played at Tusculum College, and he's won the nickelback job. Isaiah Oliver, the preferred nickelback, is still coming back from knee surgery. they didn't think he was 100%, so they put him on injured reserve. And Alford beat out Darren Hall, a former fourth-round pick from last year, who will back up Darryl on the left side over there. So D made a lot of plays in the exhibition season. He came from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Canadian Football League and set to hold it down at nickelback for the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, in our last couple of minutes here with Darryl Orlando Ledbetter, he covers the Atlanta Falcons for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's also the past president of the Pro Football Writers Association. I want to ask you about the NFL. Do you think the NFL has addressed some of the issues of the offseason, especially Stephen Ross and Dan Snyder, John Gruden, and some of the concerns that were, basically said by former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores?
No, they paid lip service to it. They had the owners meeting here. They had a lot of minority candidates in the interview. They did hire one lady to be the president of the Raiders, so that's progress. Let's give them hands up for that. But then when I look at the Falcons getting ready to play the Saints, and I see Dennis Allen, who's a great guy, I know him, but he was 8-28 at the Raiders.
Right.
He gets a second shot. So, we rarely, Lovie Smith is getting a second shot, so let's call it, fair. Lovie's getting a second shot, well, actually third in Tampa. Because, in Houston, because he had Chicago, Tampa Bay, and he's, that's rare to see a brother get that many ops. Romeo Cornell got a couple. So there is progress being made, and let's applaud that. But let's not ignore the fact that the issues that Brian Flores and Steve Wilkes and, other people, Mike Mularkey even brought up that he knew his interviews were shams and that he was going to get that job in Tennessee. That the owners have some Stephen Ross's situation with tampering with Brady. The owners have seemed to dodge the penalties, whereas the players get hit pretty hard by the penalties, the way the league structure is set up.
You think Stephen Ross should have been punished more severely, the accusation of asking a professional coach to blow games, you would think some had said he had to go, but it just seems like he got slapped on the wrist.
Yeah, well, they couldn't corroborate that information. They were able to corroborate the tampering charges. So that was reflective in the penalty, which, even if they did, they probably didn't want to find that evidence, because then that goes to the heart and the essence of the competition of the games that, that you can probably see him quietly get ushered out here. They did that to owners for less, Jerry Richardson, but at the integrity of the game, you would think that they would want nothing to do with a person like that.
Well, I want to thank you for being with me. We're going to have to do this again. I enjoyed it. My frat brother and the honored member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, 40-year service award given to you, one of the best in the business, Darryl Orlando Ledbetter. Routine.
Ruth, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.